Yo, it's Jalen, and I'm here with another video. So, in today's video, we're outside. I'm pretty much in like a church parking lot, and it's like really nice outside. It's cloudy. You know, just got through raining. The sun's not out. It's gray, just the way I like it. So, this video is essentially going to be on making choices in life, and this is pretty much inspired by a watching of Mr. Nobody. So I've seen Mr. Nobody before, but I decided to rewatch it. It's essentially a movie where it takes place pretty much inside of the main character's mind, being Nemo. And Nemo is faced with a choice at some point in the movie where he has to decide to either stay with his dad or go with his mother on the train. And the movie is following like all of the different paths, all of the different choices that he can make depending on those two choices. And it essentially ends with him deciding to make his own choice. He doesn't go with his dad or go with his mom. He runs to essentially like this pier or whatever and meets up with Anna, I believe is the name of the character, who's essentially like the love of his life or whatever. You know, she's like the woman that he loved the most out of the three that he chose, right? And when he made that choice, all of the other realities, all of the other, paths that he could have chosen pretty much started to stop existing. Because the whole thing with the movie is, the whole premise behind the movie, or a theme behind it, is that, okay, you have three spatial dimensions, height, width, depth. You have one, temporal dimension, which, that one temporal dimension is time going forward, time moving forward due to the Big Bang. But then, the main character, he's doing like this, one path that he takes essentially leads to him being like this educational channel type of, teacher type of guy that you sort of see on like, I don't know what the freak like one of those dudes like Nature or something like that, but he's talking about physics. And so he talks about the three spatial dimensions, one temporal dimension, but then he adds, what if there's another temporal dimension? And this other temporal dimension is the Great Recession or whatever, if I'm saying that correctly, where the Great Crunch, the Big Crunch, it's the Big Bang, Big Crunch, my fault, y'all. So where once time expands and it reaches its limit, it starts to go backwards. So you have time going forwards, and then you have time going backwards due to the Big Crunch. And so pretty much it's pretty much talking about the fact that time, when you make a choice, like the Big Bang and the Big Crunch pretty much meet, and it becomes the present, which is your choice. You have to watch the movie to know what the fuck I'm talking about. But that movie really made me think about the weight of choices, how good it feels to essentially make a choice based on your own principles, based on actually feeling the weight of it and actually making an honest choice, because he made a choice that was uniquely his own, not following his mom, not following his dad, making his own choice. Not really, he made a move that was not dictated by what was in front of him. Like one of the ending lines in the movie, Nemo, he's an old man, and he's telling like the journalist, like, one of the most interesting moves that you can make in chess is to not move at all. And when he did that, everything became clear, and of course all of the other paths, like I said, dissipated, and yada yada yada. So the reason why choices are so important is because, going back to myself, using myself as an example, I had a conversation with one of my coworkers Like, what was it? It was Saturday. I had this discussion with my coworker. It wasn't busy that Saturday for some reason. I do not know why it was not busy, but it was not busy. So we were allowed to talk, do whatever. And, we were talking, and the subject started on dating or whatever. They asked my other coworker, does he date? Of course he doesn't. I'm not gonna, he doesn't date, you know what I mean? But then, of course, since I'm there, the question came to me, and they were like, Jalen, do you date? I said, no, I don't date. Have you ever dated? I said, no, I've never dated. And, of course, you can tell, you can look at me and know, like, what the fuck I'm doing if I'm not dating. They're like, oh, so you must be trying to get yourself together. I said, yeah, I'm trying to get myself together and get money and do all that sorts of stuff. And, my other coworker, he made a point, which, that point might be true for him, but it's not really that true for me. He says, well, you have your youth now, and, you should do those sorts of things because you don't want your youth to go away. But for me, the reason why I don't really hold my youth or see it in that fashion is because I've been around people to where I know that if I make the wrong choices now, it's going to fuck me up in the future. Like, let's just say I date. If I date and I fuck it up now, it's going to fuck me up in the future. If I have a kid with some chick somewhere, I'm going to be fucked up for life. If I get an STD, I'm going to be fucked up for life. If I waste my years dating and wasting money on dates when I could be saving it up or putting it into my education or putting it into reading books that can, help me become more learned and competent, I'm going to fuck my life up. There's just way too many things that I could be doing besides dating. I told the people, it would be cool to have somebody that can understand me. Because fuck, I don't even got friends to understand me. I have like no friends whatsoever. However, when I look at the give and take when it comes to the choices that I make in life and the decisions, I understand that there's a lot more things and a lot more choices that hold more weight in my life and a lot more paths that hold more weight in my life than being the guy that goes around dating other people. It's just a waste of time. However, for him though, I can understand why he would want to date, and, go around because, he's like, what is it? I think he's like 3 to 4 years younger than me. He's a lot more handsome than me. So he can date or whatever. It's not really that big of a deal for him. And also, like I said, he's 3 to 4 years younger than me. So probably by the time he reaches my age, he's gonna start to see like time. He's gonna really start to experience time in a sense. Like I already experience time right now, to where I'm really scared. I'm just scared of dying, really. Because the reason why I'm scared of dying is because I haven't made all the choices in life that I want to make. And the choices that I've made so far aren't enough to say that I've fulfilled the purpose, the meaning, and the direction that God has for my life. I don't feel like I've fulfilled it at this point in time. So dying and fucking up is a lot more serious for me, here and now. When it comes down to Mr. Nobody, for him, he was, like I said, the whole movie is 2 hours. It's 2 hours worth of content of him thinking about literally one choice. It's 2 hours of him thinking about one choice. And he's thinking about this as a freaking kid. You know what I mean? So that's me. Like there's such a seriousness to choices. Like everything you do it can branch off into so much else You feel me? And also, not only that, it can shut off so many other possibilities that you can't be able to do because you made that other decision. The only way to be able to do it is to go backwards, which of course for him, with one of the theories behind the movie, he can go backwards because of the mechanics of the Big Crunch and there being another temporal dimension. So he can go backwards. Us, I'm not too sure. Of course, y'all know I'm a part of the magic tradition, so I don't really know of any freaking chaos magic rituals where people have gone forward in time. I don't know of any. I know about freaking hyper sigils. But that's about it. I don't really know of any like sigil magic that has people go backwards in time with like the Big Crunch and all that sort of shit. But really, it's just choices are so being a human being that is able to make choices is so terrifying, and it's so beautiful at the same time. Because, one thing about choices is, you have like the butterfly effect to where, the choices that I make now not only affect me, but it's going to affect other people, right? Like if I decide one day I don't want to have kids, that's millions of lives that aren't going to exist. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to turn this into a nihilist argument because I don't really care about that. What I'm saying is that there's weight and there's a distance and a trajectory to choices that is a lot more greater than we would have ourselves to believe, right? So like really, it's just that movie really just had me think about that, and it really had me to it made me look at life. I don't know, it just I'm looking at myself a lot more openly. I'm not really very closed-minded towards what I want. You know what I mean? Like I don't really know. Well, I know what I want, but I don't know what choices could lead me to obtaining what I want to obtain until I'm put into that situation. And when I'm put into those situations, I don't really want to be afraid of having to make the choice that I need to make to fulfill my needs, fulfill my wants, and to fulfill my purpose. You know what I mean? Like Kierkegaard says, if you do one thing, you'll regret it. If you don't do that thing, you'll regret it. But not only Kierkegaard, if you watch Fast and Furious, like Han said, the dude was like, hey, what if you don't do what you want to do? He said something to that regard, and Han replied like, you make choices and, you don't look back. It's just that easy. So I guess that's what I'm gonna do. But anyways, this is Jalen signing out. Peace.